Let's carry on. Unit 33. We're learning about kavod ועונג Shabbat, right? We said that right? v'daber davar. We're going to go into does that mean speech, or does that mean thoughts, or does that mean actions? We're going to go deeper into that soon. We're going to focus on v'daber davar and see the halachot of what is appropriate speech and how far does that go. So, as we said, v'daber davar, Shabbat kufid gimel, v'daber davar shelo dibucha shel Shabbat ki dibucha shel chol. What does that mean? What is this sentence is a problematic one in the sense of the Shabbosdik issue, right? In other words, we say your speech has to be Shabbosdik. Okay, now define Shabbosdik. Like what do you mean by Shabbosdik? So that's a machloket in the Tosfot here. Says the Tosfot brings Rashi kigon mekach umemkar. So it's not Shabbosdik, is business. All right, it's fair. V'nirei l'Rabbeinu tam dakvar nafka mimtzoch avtzecha. Has to do with business. So v'daber davar is its own issue unto itself, regardless of business or anything like that. Elo omer Rabbeinu tam, sh'temar b'veikar rabba, Shimon bar Yochai, hava le'ima savta, grandmother, great-grandmother, dehavat mishtaya sagya, she just talked a lot. Amar la'ima shabtahu, said, right, Bobby, it's Shabbos. Shatka. Mashma she'en kol kach ledaber b'Shabbat k'mo b'chol. So Tosfot learn you just shouldn't talk too much on Shabbos. Just don't talk too much. It has nothing to do with what you talk about. I assume that if we're talking about Torah and prayer, right, davening, Tosfot would be okay with that. But any other speech, it seems that Tosfot just don't talk so much on Shabbos. Rambam agrees. Rambam concurs. During the week, you might just, be talking Nourishkeit, just hanging out, just talking, whatever. But on Shabbos, you just shouldn't talk so much. Just don't. Now, of course, this Rabbeinu Tam and the Rambam are very far from the minhag, right? Any of us in the good old days, well, maybe now some of you have also gone back to shuls, but in the good old days, we used to daven in shuls, and then I don't know if you all remember this. And then you'd hang, and then people would shmooze after shul, right? This is Minhag Yisrael for millennia. Trumat Hadeshen asks himself this question, right? He says, I have a problem. I have Rabbeinu Tam, I have the Rambam, but it's against the Minhag. So what do you do? It says Trumat Hadeshen, מה שנוהגים רוב בני אדם אף מדקדקים במעשיהם להתאסף ביום השבת לאחר יציאת בית הכנסת, ולספר שמועות מיני מלכים ושרים, to talk politics, דרך המלחמות וחיי גבנה. Yes, chashash yisur b'davar or lav. Are you allowed to hang out and talk about politics after shul on Shabbos, right? Erech milchamot. I saw someone had a thing that it used to be what people would talk about is wars, and what do people talk about today instead?
Real estate.
Real estate, you said?
It's usually talk about food, restaurants, and real estate. That's all.
Politics. So So the theory was that we've replaced wars with sports.
Oh, that's right? Probably true, but not me. Okay.
I'm not. I was never very into sports myself, but discussing about those teams, I was never into that myself. But it seems to be the minhag, at least, right? And we prefer sports than wars, so it's probably a good thing. Anyway, it says Trumat Hadeshen, why? Because it seems to be against the Tosfot, who says it's the other way around. During the week, you finish davening, you run home, right? You have to go back, you have to get to work, you're in a rush, you don't have time. But on Shabbos is when you can hang out and shmooze because you're not rushing anywhere, right? אמנם אם אותם בני אדם מתענגים בכך, כשמדברים ומספרים שמועות מהמלכים בשרים ומלחמותיהם וכי הגבנה כדרך הרבה בני אדם שמתאבים לכך, נראה דוודאי שערי. Many people take pleasure in hanging out and schmoozing and talking about politics, etc. And therefore, it should be okay. This is similar to a smack. בחורים המתענגים במרוצתם ובקפיצתם מותר. You're allowed to, if you enjoy exercising, right, you shouldn't be, right, is exercising or is playing ball, maybe without the ball, But if you I don't know, you have races, right? Whatever, right? If you enjoy going running, if you enjoy doing those kinds of things. So says the smak, so it's not Shabbosdik, but if you enjoy it, you could do it, as the smak says. Similarly, he explains here. שלא יהיה הילוכחה של שבת כהילוכחה של חול, פירוש שלא ירוץ ויקפוץ. Right, we learn, the Medrash learns that you're not supposed to do sports on Shabbos either. אף על פי כן, אם עושה להתענג ולאהבת נפשו, שרי. הוא הדין עניין שיחה יתרה. נפקא לרע מימי היקרא. From the same pasuk, we learn two different things. We learn how to walk on Shabbos and we learn how to talk on Shabbos. And when it comes to walking, running, we say it's okay if you enjoy it. So too, when it comes to talking, to schmoozing, you're allowed to do it if you enjoy it. And now is a very interesting social commentary that he adds. ראיתי הרבה פעמים שמקצת מאותם בני אדם מתאספים לספר שמועות הללו אינם מתענגים מריבוי שמועות הללו. Some people just hang out because that's what the chevra do, but they don't really enjoy it. You want to be with the guys, but they don't really take any pleasure in it. עושים כן לרצון חברים הנאספים מהם, כי אגב נראה יש חשש איסור אותן שהם מתענגים. So if you're ever going to someone's house after shul, not during Corona, obviously, but if you're ever going to someone's house after shul, and that person's hanging out and schmoozing after shul, and you're standing there, and you're tired of it, you want him to stop and just come. So you say, listen, you're allowed to stand here and talk, but I'm not allowed to be here because I'm not enjoying this. The whole heter to hang out and schmooze is only because you enjoyed it. I'm not enjoying this, so I'm sorry, we're gonna have to stop. So, okay, a couple of comments that you've added. I'm gonna incorporate them in a moment. So the Shulchan Aruch and the Rima bring these psak. The bil davar שלא ידיבורך של שבת כדיבורך של חול, ואפילו בסירת דברים בטלים אסור להרבות. ובני אדם, this is the Rambam, בני אדם שסיפור שמות ודברי חידושים, דברי חידושים means news, right? Not חידושי תורה, it means news, right? הוא עונג להם, מותר לספרם בשבת כמו בחול. People enjoy hearing the news. You could ask, you could discuss the news after shul on Shabbos. ומי שאינו מתענג אסור לאומרם כדי שיתענג בהם חברו. The Bnei Sachar says that this whole idea in the Trumat Kodesh and the Rima is a very problematic thing, and he brings an Alshech who flips the whole thing on its head. Why? Because this is based on the idea of Oneg Shabbat. Oneg Shabbat, says the Smak, why are you not allowed to run on Shabbos? Because why do you run? Well, either because you exercise, you need to suffer for your sins of eating too much, or whatever, or because you're in a rush to go somewhere, and you shouldn't be in that mindset on Shabbat. But if you enjoy it, it's okay. That's the way the Smak says. If you enjoy it, it's okay. Why? Because then it is Oneg Shabbat. So if my Oneg Shabbat is discussing politics, so that's okay too. That seems to be what the Trumat Kodesh says. He brings an Alshech, says Bnei Sachar brings an Alshech who goes the exact opposite, totally different direction. The Gemara says, "Kola me'aneg et haShabbat notnim lo misharot libo." Maze me'aneg et haShabbat, gives the Shabbat pleasure. Not that he gets pleasure from Shabbat, but he gives Shabbat pleasure. Dikdek Alshech, haval lemeimar kol hamit'aneg b'Shabbat. Right? If you receive pleasure on Shabbat, not if you give the Shabbat pleasure. תירץ, דיני יאמר האדם עונג שלו הוא שחוק, קלות ראש, טיולים, דבר דברי הוואי, שאר עניינים לא טובים. אנא מנעימה לו, איננו אוכלים לעינוגך. The point here isn't, this isn't about you. The point here isn't your pleasure. כיוון שהשבת אין לו עונג מזה. The Shabbat has to enjoy your pleasure. ואין השבת כבוד מזה. על כן אמר, כל המענג את השבת. So my mashal, to say, what is the litmus test? What are you saying? So right, that's as Zev is pointing out. I think this is similar to what Rabbi was saying earlier, right? What Rabbi said in the chat. right? I just didn't see it before. So that if you start measuring by what do I enjoy, that could be a problematic thing, because then again, are we achieving Shabbat's purpose? Are we achieving the goal of Shabbat? Again, I always try to be careful of saying that sentence, because as I've said, 6 times it's evening already. Define Shabbosdik. What is Shabbosdik and what is not Shabbosdik? It's a bit difficult, but we have to be careful. We have to be careful of these definitions that say, do what you enjoy. When you have to remember that Shabbat seems to be some direction the Torah is trying to give you. The Rishonim here are trying to give you out of Shabbat. And
is there a communal nature to this? I'm sorry. Right? Is there a communal nature? Is there a communal nature to Shabbosdik? I mean, we all hear this community. We don't. This isn't Shabbosdik. This is Shabbosdik. I mean, at what point does that enter into it, or is it part of a different discussion of what people consider Shabbosdik?
It's a good question, but I'd want to add that to the next part. I'm just saying about the Al-Sheikh. I'm going to remember your question. Don't worry. But regarding the Al-Sheikh, what he's saying is the point is la'aneged Shabbat, and this the way. I think the right way to think about this is, when I went to my bubby for Shabbat, right? So she enjoyed seeing me enjoy her challenge. She enjoyed having us sing this Mirot Shabbat, right? Whatever. The point isn't that we're supposed to suffer and Shabbat is supposed to enjoy. The point is that we're supposed to give Shabbat pleasure by enjoying in the right way. So if now I say, now I have Shabbat, I have an opportunity to rest, right? Shabbat ta'anug. I have an opportunity to rest. I have an opportunity to eat well. I have an opportunity to talk Torah. I have an opportunity to sing Zmirat Shabbat, to be with the family, to spend more time with my kids. All these things are things that the Shabbos should shep nachas from us. I think that's the point. I think that's a good litmus test for what the Al-Sheikh is talking about. If we start talking about whatever, so all right, we understand. Sometimes you do those things, but that's not necessarily giving nachas in that same way. I think that's what the Al-Sheikh is saying. Yisachar points out, obviously, there's the opposite of what we see in the Ramah. I enjoy obviously, if you learn any Torah, you never talk politics, right? So you never just talk about current events. In other words, he doesn't think there's a real kula. It's a kula because you ask the Rav and they're going to put it on the internet tomorrow, so you have to say something that's more politic. But really, you should take the Al-Sheikh's standard. So you say, what is define Shabbosdik? His definition of Shabbosdik is regilut shelcha. היינו מה שאתה רגיל להתענג בנפשך במית באבלי הזמן וטיולים. זה אינו מענייני עונג שבת, כי אין השבת תענוג מזה רק וקראת לשבת עונג. Now again, he doesn't really define the standard either, right? I'm just pointing out every time the term Shabbosdik comes up to really get a clear definition out of this. He says that talking politics isn't Shabbosdik necessarily, okay? At least not too much. It doesn't really give us a clear definition. Obviously, la halacha and Minhag Yisrael, the Trumat Edition wasn't just saying the stam, both Minhag Yisrael and the halacha and the Ramah. You are allowed, I think it is, you are allowed to talk about things as long as you actually enjoy the conversation and not suffering from the conversation. I think it's important to bear, again, I brought the Al-Sheikh because I think it's important to bear that in mind, to remember that there also is such a standard worth thinking about.